Hello, my name's Mantas. Oh Lord. Oh my god. There it is. I'm Lithuanian. Hold on a minute. Bow! Zoom in on that. The reason why I'm introducing myself like this today is because I want to make an introductory video as to what I do on the internet. If you ask me what it is that I do, I don't really know myself, but I guess that's something we can figure out together. Of course, I go by the name of Poorsleeepyhead. I think that would be a good place to start. Where did the name even come from? So this whole story really starts in 2020 when I moved to the UK. And hold on a minute. Bow to the UK. Can you imagine? Can you believe it?
I said I can't believe it.
Okay, well, you better believe it.
Oh, wow.
I was quite a closeted person. So when I moved to the UK, I wanted to start social media as a way to help me open up, to kind of be more creatively free and just do whatever I want to do. Yeah. So I thought I, need an alias for it. So I was in bed. I was sleepy. In bed with a head on my shoulders, actually. So I thought Sleepyhead. Head. That was taken. I was going by Instagram. I was just typing this into Instagram, see what's taken. That was taken. So I had to add poor to it. Not in the sense that I was poor. Well, I was poor. I am still poor, money-wise. But poor as in like I'm just a little guy. I'm just a little poor little guy. That was taken as well for some reason. So I thought a quirk could be like having 3 E's, which is a little gimmick I use in my Instagram highlights. Like I add an extra E because I'm different. Or maybe I just don't know how to spell sleepy. Or it's fucking talking a lot. So once you have a nickname, once you have a username, you have to think, what is the content that you're gonna post going to be? I don't think I still really know the answer to that question, but it all kind of tells one singular story, which I've made up, which I will be explaining throughout this video. This is like basically the point of the video, is to explain the lore of Poorsleeepyhead. I used to love to create fantasy worlds and characters in my head. So this was kind of my way of having this singular place where I could do whatever I wanted and see where it goes and what it becomes. When do it becomes Poorsleeepyhead? Take the 3 main letters P, S, and H. So this is where I introduce you to the 3 main characters of the story I will be telling today. Listen up. P is for Pilot. Look, he's a little blue guy. He is a human from Earth. S is for Sith, a violet, purple little guy. He is an alien from Karulum. And for H, we have Hailey, which is a blue and purple guy. Where is he from? I don't know. He's an abstraction. But that's what we're gonna figure out. Who is Hailey? How is he connected to Pilot and Sif? What are these characters even doing? Let's get into it. So I first want to properly introduce to you to Pilot. Who is Pilot? Pilot is a version of me. What? Oh my god, that's great. Spoiler alert. It's actually not spoiler, it's like the main point of the story. He is another version of me in another universe. Yes, this is a multiverse, because if I'm going to have a singular story that I connect like all my kind of my other creative endeavors into, I need it to be malleable. I need it to be shape-shifting, to be able to lend itself to that. So it has to be a multiverse, because that's how you can excuse plot holes. Marvel would know a thing or two about that. So kind of in a similar vein, I call this universe the PCU, Pilot's Cinematic Universe. I do have a little me. Here's me. Mantas. A gray, poor, sleepy little guy. And this is the divide between us and the many other universes in between us. Obviously in between us there's many other versions, but I do play a part in this story because I am the one creating it. But also, by the multiverse's rules, this story just innately exists. I just happen to exist in the universe where I'm creating the story, but the story is actually real. You know what I mean? At this point, I can also introduce Sif. Because who's Sif? Oh, he's actually, would you guess, actually just another version of me as well.
Did you believe it?
Yes, I said he's alien, but he is actually another version of me and pilot in another universe. But he is so far removed that it renders him alien, essentially, right? Because he's just so different. This is where we're gonna have to focus on Sif's story, because that's where it all starts. It starts in Sif's homeworld, Karulum. Similarly, how Sif is a distant version of Pilot, Karulum is a distant version of Earth. It is just very different. It is an ice planet. It is covered in red jungles, or just red flora, and its origin is a little mystical as well, but we'll get into that later. What sets this planet apart from Earth is that it has a naturally occurring resource called Kara. It is a type of stone, a type of rock, mineral, which the Carulians, the inhabitants of the planet, a specific tribe actually, learned to synthesize this into a stone crystal hybrid called Saphir, which I will also illustrate as this little violet orb. With this crystal, and with the intention of their words and their thoughts, they can summon portals called rifts. What are these portals used for? Well, I think the most obvious is instant long distance travel, but they also have a gimmick that Carulians can use them to summon kind of basically anything they can think of. So they can summon objects through these portals out of the dimension that it taps into. But these rifts are actually just a downsized, less powerful version of an ancient portal that has already existed on planet Karulum since its origin, basically, is the belief. This portal is known as the Greys. The Greys is deeply revered. It is only used by an exceptional few, which luckily Sif actually happens to be one of them. He is undertaking a special kind of mentorship where he trains to travel through the Greys with his spirit body, because unlike the rifts, you cannot physically travel through the Greys, because if you end up going through, you basically drift off into a very mysterious and chaotic realm. Similarly, you also cannot summon any objects from the Greys because it is just not stable enough. Sorry, trigger warning, I'm gonna show some bare thigh, but I did tattoo the Greys on my thigh. I designed it and tattooed it myself. I did forget to mention that I am a tattoo artist. The wizard is not part of it, but I kind of incorporated my design into this one that somebody else made. Similarly, since we're on that note, if you've seen this tattoo, this is actually Hailey, this skeleton looking thing, and with this daisy flower on top is a depiction of Hailey, which I designed myself. I didn't tattoo it myself though. Yeah, so you can see, I guess how literally this story is very intertwined literally with my body. I have this shit on my skin. So I hope you understand the gravity of what I'm explaining to you, okay? Is it clocking to you? So as Sif was climbing to higher ranks, gaining more respect amongst his peers and mentors, he was going to embark on one of the first journeys through the Greys. How he was going to do that was because you can't physically travel through. They enter a deep meditative state, then their spirit body kind of jumps out, travels through, and it can traverse inside the dimension of the portal. Then, because it's still tethered to a physical body, it can kind of loop around and come back because it has an exit point. And what they've done with all these kind of treks through the Greys in the years that they've used it was enrich their culture and knowledge. But as you can guess, as any story has some kind of conflict, something went wrong. Just before the day that he was supposed to have this grand ceremony, he approached the portal alone. As he was there, he had an intrusive thought, as we all do. He thought, what really would happen if I just stepped through? What if I just went now and just stepped through it? So he had a thought, and of course he didn't actually do it. But because he was standing so close to the portal, he was being affected by its energy. The energy around the portal is called flux. Flux is energy that is present around portals, and it can travel between dimensions. It is what connects Sif's body to its astral body when he travels through. So the flux of the portal intercepted Sif's energy field and his thoughts. So unbeknownst to Sif, a version of him, his thought, manifested and traveled through the portal. And this is the point where it's going to become a little complicated. If it feels like I've already been kind of rambling a little bit, oh baby, it's only starting. Don't you worry. So this is where Hyley's origin is going to come into play. I will really need to first explain to you how the dimensions that I've been mentioning actually work. So this space that me and you occupy is known as blue space. This is where Sif exists, where Pilot exists, and where little old me exists. The other space that I was talking about, which is like the astral realm, the spiritual realm, is known as red space. All intelligent, sentient, conscious life that exists in blue space has an astral body in red space. Excuse you. Sorry, my kitties were just being little rascals. This one in particular, the criminal, her name's Psylocke. She doesn't really like to be on my hands. If a planet is inhabited by enough intelligent life, it will actually have an astral body of its own. Though the astral bodies of planets differ from those of living beings because they have a very unstable form, which is kind of crafted and constructed from this general basin of all these thoughts and feelings intermingling, and throughout the course of Earth's life, like its astral body is changing very drastically and dramatically. So what this also means is that when Carulians are using rifts, they are operating through red space. Because of that, they are actually tapping into the planet's kind of general conscious energy. Essentially, when they are thinking, they are setting an intention forward of what they want to summon, and it only becomes physical once it travels back through the rift into blue space. And here I am only showing you the astral body of Earth because Carulium doesn't actually have one. That is a little mystery that I'll tap into later. But for now, let's go back to Sif. So I mentioned that the rifts operate through red space, but the grays does not. Above it all, blue and red. When you mix those two colors together, what do you get? You get violet or purple. Violet space is kind of the chaos realm. Not much is known about it, but there are undefined entities that exist in it. They are kind of like, you could think of them as gods, but I don't believe they hold as much power. They're kind of malevolent a little bit. They kind of do their own thing. You don't really know what their intentions are, but this happens to be the dimension through which the grays operates. Violet space is like basically this unifying dimension which holds all of red and blue space and all the variations of them. This means that violet space doesn't have like alternative versions of itself. It basically just stores all the other multiple, basically infinite universes that exist of red and blue. Anyways, so let's now circle back to the Sif thing now that I give you this little overview of the dimensions. So because it traveled through the grays, it actually ended up in violet space. Now, obviously, when it did this, it basically created a second astral body, which is not ideal. It is very disruptive to all the dimensions, especially because it's in violet space. Like, it creates this very extreme flux going on. So what this manifestation had to do was gain flux with another body. And since it operated through violet space, it actually ended up attaching itself to Pilot's spiritual body down in another universe. So when it did this, it actually gained enough energy, flux, to travel down back into red space. And that is where it kind of settled down for a bit. But this couldn't go on for much longer because now Pilot and Sif were interconnected through this kind of middle astral body, which was located kind of in between both of their universes. So at this point, what started to happen was that all the universes surrounding Sif and Pilot started to merge into each other, which meant that other versions of Pilot started to become aware of each other. So Pilot was now like becoming aware of other versions of himself, but these other versions did not have the same kind of link with Sif. They were completely detached. The original Pilot, this one singular Pilot, alongside this one singular Sif, were just connected by this one anomaly in all these multiverses. They were the only ones having this connection. And all these kind of pilots, they started to be able to communicate with each other in some kind of way. They started a whole coalition. They called themselves the Visionary Observer Coalition. Whereas other versions of Sif, which he calls Shechismavi, were a lot more passive in the matter so as to not accelerate the change of the multiverses kind of joining together. So basically they were being smart and pilots were being stupid and reckless. And as all of that started going down, this manifestation managed to settle down in a planet called Ghana. Ghana is actually an astral projection of Earth, but it is not Pilot's Earth, it is my Earth, which happens to be kind of the midway between Sif and Pilot. While this manifestation was in Ghana, it was reached out to by mysterious entities from Violet Space. So entities from Violet Space, they obviously grew aware of the disruptions that Pilot and Sif were causing to the multiverse. And they had to reach out to this manifestation, the cause of it all. And what they gave him were two options. They told him, you either live out your life on this planet, tethered to two bodies who are actively, slowly tearing you apart, or they can grant him an instrument with which it would be able to abolish the existence of Sif and Pilot and all the other versions of them that exist in other multiverses, completely wiping them off existence completely. So completely. Obviously, he chose the latter to stay alive, accept the instrument, and thus he was named Haile Yin. That's his full government name. Bow. Yin. Now, when he got this instrument, it wasn't like, a one and done kind of thing. He still has to locate them. So he's kind of, in the story, he is actively hunting them down so that he can, kill them. He ends up losing the orange instrument somehow. There's all kinds of other shit going on. And among all that, there's also a question of who was it that reached out to him? What was their motive to keep him alive? Not just, right there and then just kill him, just completely solve the issue. And there's also these other questions of, are there true alien worlds if all the ones that we know of as of now are just like variations of me and the Earth? Like, are there truly alien worlds that are not in any way connected? So those at the moment are like the unanswered questions, and they're basically what I'm going to try and play with what I create next. Not just in this aspect with these characters, but it's a multiverse. Like, I can do anything I want with it. All this was to explain to you the basis of the story and, kind of the system, the world that it all exists in, how it works. Right now, I will move on to the second part of the video where I will actually show you the videos I created. I will talk about them, explain them. And I think a good way to get into it is to first backtrack just a little bit, back to Saphir, how it works now that we know. So what they actually use to perform this magic is this kind of dagger thingy called a talus. So what they do is they insert the Saphir, and oh, little did you know that I actually have it IRL. I have it in real life, not in Minecraft. That's crazy. If you look at it, it's literally glowing, so magical. I do have a video on how I made it here on YouTube. You can check that out. I'm really proud of it. I have it displayed on my wall. It looks really cool when it's glowing. It's got a little dangly amber. But yeah, this is like my personalized talus, which has a little writing engraved on the wooden blade here, which says Krivis. Krivis is a kind of Lithuanian old pagan chief in charge. So yeah, this is kind of my talus, which I use to perform magic. And how it happens is it's this sort of amalgamation of poetry, but it gets condensed into like this spell incantation, which you then recite, and then you like move the dagger in a specific way to cast the portal and have all the shit come out of it. That being said, I will kind of bring you over here. What I'll do is I'll open Instagram, I will scroll, talk it through with you. For me, that's gonna be another day because I've been talking for a while, but for you, it's gonna be in a second. Get out of there. Get out of there. This is the other one. Her name's Mystique. She's really shedding a lot. I'm filming with my boyfriend at home. He's literally sitting right across from me. He says he can't hear me, but I'm not totally convinced. I'll put up a little screen just so I don't have to look at him. Okay, now I'm warning you now. It's gonna be a pretty wordy segment, this other half of the video. Even though it doesn't seem like I have that many posts, it's literally just all that, but I definitely post very saturated. Like one of my posts carries a lot of information. But we can start off with the first post. This is Planet Carulum. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can read it for yourself. But this whole text describes an encounter between two visionaries. They basically have this whole little system in place where they gather data. So the visionaries, which are closest in universal proximity to Pilot, they kind of receive all this random information from Pilot's universe, and then they relay that information to the observers who are more in the peripherals of Pilot's influence, and they archive and analyze the information because if that information is too close to Pilot, it might get jumbled up and like messed up because of the influence. So at the top you can see here it says excerpt from data entry, and then a little specific number, like ticket. The O says this is an observer. Then this is like their little license plate, you could say, I guess. This says that it is an event, numbered 56. Obviously, it doesn't matter for you at all what this little sequence of numbers and letters is, but I'm just explaining it because there is a whole little system that I put into play here. Little bits like that, they do have some structure behind them. You know, it's not just like a random string of numbers and letters. It's just what I'm trying to say. Similarly, in the bottom here, we have a source object, which is a banana sketchbook, which is where this picture was found. The source recipient is Vaitautas Vinčiulis. The source inspector, an observer, is Neimantas Vištulietis. Obviously, their names are very similar to mine, as I mentioned, or did I? I'm already getting lost. This isn't good. So basically, this is their universal origin number. Details of interest is this sketchbook, and then just kind of detailing stuff about it. The source recipient, which is a visionary, is going to have their surname starting with Vin, which is more closely related to Pilotas, as opposed to a visionary who's going to have one that's more similar to mine. Again, just a little tidbit, doesn't really mean much. But yeah, this text just shows how an exchange like that can happen. And you can see that they're actually using rifts here to visit each other. I'm not sure how they're doing that. That's up to your interpretation, but let's just say that somehow they were managing to use rifts to like visit each other and exchange information and all these things, right? Then the few other little posts are not related. I was still just like posting my own stuff, my own art. This was from, you know, I will take the opportunity to like kind of show off my stuff a little bit. This is a drawing I did from Wizard 101. It was like a competition that I won first place for, and I got some good game credit for that. This is a little abstract painting. This was like a final job I did for my school exam, my art exam, just in digital art. I don't recall who this person is. This is somebody I drew from Instagram, sorry. Another kind of piece I did of joint cut up pieces of artwork I did in art school, because I went to art school for just a little bit, over a year or so, maybe 2. And this is like one of the first kind of conceptual videos I did, which again isn't pertaining to Poorsleeepyhead lore, but I was just experimenting with showing off my poetry. I don't take myself that seriously with my poetry. It's just words that I wrote. You know, I wanted to make it a little video, a little something, just to put my thoughts into video form. I'm proud of this little video. It's whatever connotation it gives to you, you know, that's what you can take away from it. It's just about the joy and freedoms of creating shit and having to create to live, basically, because otherwise I can't exist like this, you know. Here's the translation if you want to read that. And this is the first Poorsleeepyhead lore that I intentionally posted to kind of kick this whole thing off. I was definitely inspired by the PlayStation 2 era ad campaigns that they did, which were very futuristic and experimental. So I wanted to do something of that myself, playing it out as if it's a game title. This says data entry. It's an observer PSH 0198, and it's a digital entry numbered 12. That's actually my little number, technically. This little PSH is me, like my little tag. So it's, you know, sort of like I'm playing a part of it. This is a little post I did for my birthday to commemorate whatever. This is the first like video of conceptual I did of Pilot. Now, from the beginning, I didn't want people to think that I'm Pilot. Like, Pilot in my head is like somebody different. So when I'm like looking at these videos and these posts, I feel like I'm looking at a character, you know, like it's not me. I'm playing Pilot because he kind of looks like me, I guess. I don't really know what he looks like. This is just like our rendition of it, right? In this universe, who knows what he actually looks like. But yeah, I made this cool little video. I'm really glad how all the little effects came out. So obviously I overlaid a lot of 3D graphics. No, there was no AI used in this bullshit because this was like uploaded in 2022. I guess AI was a thing back then, but obviously it wasn't this good. I am a 3D artist at heart, and I do not still use those things, but actually that is something I will comment about. At the end of the video, I will make a whole little section about my thoughts about AI. That part there was cool, where he like knocks the rock. I think I ate with that. Here's an even lengthier piece of text. Of course, it's again an entry, a type of data entry that I logged. And this just gives you a little introduction as to who Pilot is. It's like somebody who is not part of the coalition. Maybe they're like estranged and they're still collecting data on Pilot. This video is labeled Chapter A1, year 2022, August 21st. And this is the 14th chapter. So chapter is like any experience that Pilot experiences, whether it's a dream, whether he actually travels somewhere. He keeps tabs on these little journeys he goes on in his journal or whatever, and he calls them chapters. And they are then defined as acts 1, 2, or 3, which means acts 1 are like dreams, acts 2 are like maybe something physical happening, and then acts 3 are maybe like life endangering. I did, I think, purposely do this in the way to be confusing. My friends at the time, even though they're hyping me up, yeah, I love it, you know, I'm sure they didn't understand what the fuck I'm writing about here, because I'm not expecting people to. So I was trying to be a bit obscure on purpose, I guess you could say. This is one of the big ones. So at the start here, obviously we see the orange instrument depicted. It's pretty true to how I actually saw it in the dream, I will say. The space that it's held in is some secure location on Carulum. So this is when Sif and his mentors got hold of the orange instrument. I am not sure how that happened. I can't possibly know everything, can I? I'm just an observer. But this text shows off how Pilot and Sif communicated. And Pilot here is expressing his concerns for them keeping this instrument in their possession, because he now believes, which they weren't aware of at the time, that Hailey's after this orange instrument. And yeah, and Pilot kind of senses that Hailey is trying to get through to him, but because of all the visionaries and observers surrounding him, Hailey is not able to pinpoint him quite well. So what we're seeing here is visionaries and observers being spied on. Like they're being spied on by Hailey and his weird intergalactic ship that he has. That's where it shows up. So these like multiplying hands that you see are like other versions of him. Obviously, the multiverse works in a way that, you know, it's not only male pilots, there can be female pilots. Female pilots in this situation are my friends who helped me film the video. I like how organic it felt, like just to mess around with this little project with my friends, even though it is a little weird and stupid for them, I think, but I'm really glad that they helped me out. To talk more of the specifics, how this video was even made, like these bits, this is called Gaussian splattering, as it is known now. At the time, it wasn't well used in the industry at all. It like at the time took a lot of time to figure it out. Like it was almost like I was programming, so it took a lot of effort to figure this whole effect out, even though it didn't turn out so well, because this scene in particular I had to make myself, because you basically have to take multiple pictures of yourself from multiple angles. So I had to manually like put the tripod in multiple places and like take pictures of myself, which is extremely tedious. But even this point cloud here, you can see how it zooms in when Hailey is using his like ship interface. Like here in this scene, you can see my shirt is yellow, then it changes to blue. That's just something I edited in After Effects. Like I did a little mask, changed it to blue, just to add that a little like aspect of, it's like the same person, it's just a little different. In the next video we're gonna watch is a little ritual being performed. To give it a little bit of context, Sif and Pilot are trying to distance themselves from Hailey and his influence, because he was, you know, keeping tabs on him, like with his ship, basically hunting them down. And they did this ritual to kind of push him away, further away. They were using like an ancient form of magic, which wasn't using the sapphire crystals, but a form of sapphire, which like is ash. It's basically a powdery substance. This ash can actually be put into ink. And if you tattoo with that ink, with the ash, that person is like a little more aware. They have a heightened sense of awareness. So it just alters based on the shape of the tattoo as well, what the content of that tattoo is, how much Saphir Ash is in the ink. You know, you can alter its effects on the human body. That's what he's kind of throwing down there. He's got like a skull to symbolize highly, a little daisy, wilted daisy, which is from earth, the ashes from Carulum, and so these three elements kind of play together to, as you saw, summon the skull of Hylie and the daisy on which it based its promise to kill Pilate and Sith. So you can see it written down in English. I have a Lithuanian translation, and here as well I have actually a Femur translation as well. Femur is an archaic language that is used for sacred practices on Carulum. It is derived from Latin on Earth, because through the Greys, Carulians actually visit Malmo, which is an alternate version of Earth. So they adapted Femur from Malmo, and it's basically like an alternate... My cat just jumped out the window. Papa. Eh. Yeah, it's like an alternate version of Latin. It's a script I created myself, actually. Oh my god, wait a minute. I'm feeling faint. There's just too much to fucking explain. So it's got its own script. I made this little table. I have a video about it. You can watch that if you really want to get more in depth about it. Anyway, it's not as complicated as it looks. I just made this table to show how all the letters connect. It's really not necessary, but I just like how it looks. It looks very complicated for no reason, which is, we know, a trend that I actually like to do. But anyways, they use that script from Malmo, that is an alternate version of Latin, to also write in this made-up language, which is related to Lithuanian, but a Malmo version of Lithuanian. What it sounds like is this. I'll just read the first portion of it. Ludumavi dartui bekovaugo klam, drutavko kahavu kiravi pasko sila. More or less. Yes, there is a whole system behind this language. I used to have this little hobby of making scripts like that and making made-up languages. With this one, I spent a little more time to actually give it a whole conjugation system as well. So, I mean, if you want to figure that out, that's all up to you, but that is not something I'm going to get into. That is one thing that I want to keep like a little mystery. I do have a Word document where I have it all laid out, actually, but I only use it to like translate the script. After that, since I mentioned a lot of the stuff about Femur and some of the tattooing with the ash, I think it would be good to jump into my tattooing account just for a little bit of a break to also explain further how this plays into it. Here on my tattoo account, I have a lot of flashes posted up. You can see these here are actually here on my wall right there. I actually have them, those were drawn physically with pen and pencil. So I just did these little like photo shoots for them. And as you can see, there's some Femur writing on there as well. It is not in the Femur language though. It is actually just in Lithuanian. Some of it is in English, and I can read the script. It takes me just a little bit, so hold on a minute. Kardas gintaro... Yeah, what? Oh, gintaro. Kardas gintaro lietas means a blade or a sword that was casted in amber. In a way, you can see I'm tying the whole Poorsleeepyhead thing into it. Like the text isn't part of the tattoo, you know, it's just kind of to spice up these drawings I did. This one is extremely experimental. It's like this alternative planet in red space. This one in particular is called Harofena. There's this little wizard guy here falling. You can actually see a text bubble. He's saying what? Krantant sunku burt. Oh, he's saying when you're falling, it's hard to cast spells. So yeah, I mean, if you really cared to transcribe everything, that's a little fun thing to do for you if you're a weirdo. I actually hope you're a weirdo. I would actually love for people to be like, you know, if I ever hid more meaningful messages for people to kind of play into this little story that I'm crafting. And this one's like highly kind of with his mind collapsing and abstracting. Also, you can see again, it says glimpses into thought up protectors and wards. Glimpses actually refers to the journeys that they go when they enter the Greys. So those are called glimpses. They're like little episodes, journeys. And these flashes are basically just titled in that way. I think it just ties it kind of all together because all these flashes kind of come from red space, like let's say like through the Greys in a way. A lot of the ones here at the bottom I did digitally, so this is like showing off the synthesis of Saphir, some kind of weird abstract instrument. Here is like a version of Hailey, another version of Hailey, splitting into two. This is another version of Hailey. Some of these are accompanied with a little bit of writing, poetry, I guess. I'm not doing that anymore. It was just kind of for these first few. So this is obviously when he was eloped, I guess, to the Violet Space Entities, or to the Orange Instrument. You can see a little excerpt here where he was kind of picking at the daisy, saying, save them not, save them not. Engaged to his mission now, he prays to the Violets to bear their word to the heedless, violent, referring to the Visionaries and Pilot and Sif and all that. The golden tool, more orange in hue, is an instrument to bring them their death, which is true. Here we see the bird. That was kind of the ring bearer of the whole ceremony tradition. So this took place in Vestroyas. It is a region in Ghana, which is kind of like a wasteland. These birds are natives of the land, and I actually have it tattooed on my leg. I'm just gonna put up a picture here. This is like the second tattoo I did on myself as little practice. The yin and yang symbol, of course, placed on the band on the ring. Very extremely intricate little skeletal design I did. I'm really proud of this one. This here is the grays that I showed you. I tattooed on my thigh. Really proud of that one as well. And here is the bird with the seeds. I did this illustration in Photoshop. Some AI was used in this image specifically. Please skip to the end of the video where I explain exactly why this illustration contains AI. So this excerpt goes a bit into detail about Pilot's education on Carulum once he's made contact and kind of started taking part in one of Sif's mentorships, actually. So I guess these are like kind of like his class notes, you would say, and there's little margin comments where, you know, like you, in your textbook you would write little things into the margin. So here he references like the ash ritual that he did with the Hailey thing and the ash. Here he actually mentions that it felt cool breaking sacred law because it's actually illegal to use that ash. It is only used by this very specific tribe called the Yoiba. And here it's also explained where the femur language, like I said, came from. Malmo means mutilated body in Prime Basian. Prime Basian is like a native language of Carulum, unlike femur, which is from Malmo. You know, it was adapted from an alien place, kind of. So that's a bit of that. Then these are straying a lot further away from the lore as we know it now. This like runic piece, this symbol here that you see, is like the hand of God. It is like the hand of creation, which I've painted on one of my canvases a while ago. Yeah, there I do have a whole system for that as well, but that is not something I have utilized in my storytelling as of yet. And these are some designs I actually did tattoo. So this was from my tattoo training course that I did. These were like the 3 pieces I had to do to basically pass the course. I think they turned out well. This was a tattoo I did for my sister, a band for my dad. Not too proud of those. That one didn't heal well in particular. This is a tattoo I did on my boyfriend's back. It's written in femur. It's his name, but kind of the Lithuanian version of it. It actually healed pretty well. I'm like, is he listening? This is a sword I did on him as well. I really like how it turned out. It also healed pretty well. It actually looks... It doesn't even look that different from how it looks in the picture, so I'm pretty proud of that one. This is one of the most recent flashes that I did. I'm really proud of this like seaborn creature because it was actually inspired by a water stain. I like moved a mug and it left like this water stain on the table, and then I basically just drew on top of it because I saw this like weird fish being, and then I kind of drew this whole little aquatic themed flash. If you're interested, you can give it a follow. It's called Sleepy Tattoo, just like Poorsleeepyhead. It's just with a sleepy with the 3 E's. We can go tap back into the main account. The music wasn't even going on these, was it? Well, whatever. You can check the video out. It doesn't really matter. The music is just kind of like a thing, whatever. And here's where like the big boy shows up, which was what I call the stagnation series. So this is where like my personal life really became engrossed with the story, like the way I was telling the whole story about Pilot. So this whole stagnation series, it came at a time when I wasn't employed, depressed, And that's basically it. So to kind of get out of that rut, I decided to start this little project to set a more kind of serious tone to the whole pilot series in a way. Still keeping it very fantasy, but with a bit more of a hidden meaning, at least for my personal life. I think this little bit of writing is basically just saying like, what am I saying? Yeah, it's just like basically I don't want to become just one of my trinkets, right, on the shelf, collecting dust. So I was trying my best to kind of work through that and still create. So once Pilot got into contact with Sif and his mentors, eventually at a certain point he was able to become part of this mentorship program that Sif was a part of. And here you can see an image of him like having this kind of crown, like a little symbolic thing to show that he's, you know, undertaking these new teachings. And there's these 12 candles all around him, which signify how long the mentorship is taking, which like is a year, a candle for each month. So here is like a rendering of Karulum with a little, another type of script that I created, but this one is even older. And this translates to the text that I've written here. Here's the translation as well. So this is like the first time Pilot saw Karulum, you know, this planet. You can see like some of the red foliage, like the red jungles peeking through there, and the cities are like glowing purple. It's all very purple. It's kind of the theme of the whole thing. I've got my purple lights here on my setup as well. These next few videos are just from, you know, my life, just to commemorate memories and stuff. Though I do write about a bit of that stagnation kind of theme as well. I just called these intermissions part 1 and 2 as if they kind of play into the series, even though they're detached from it. But, you know, it's obviously just related to how I decided to tell the story and its themes. Here's a little photo shoot of Pilot. Here you can see him crowned with more intricate jewelry, so showing that his mentorships progressed further. Like it's been, we can see half a year now. He's crafted, using the magic that he's learned, he's crafted a kind of fortress for himself called Fort Ramone. Ramone is the daisy flower or a chamomile, and he's basically planning to tear this fortress down to build a whole castle, kind of based on this like dragon that he has on his forehead, and he calls that the harmonica of the moon gardens, Raskila, which means a lady's mantle. This place that he's working on, he's crafting these buildings, is actually a moon of Karulum, because they do not allow him to directly come upon Karulum. They basically gave him the whole moon to be his like little playground where he can do all this stuff without endangering other people. There in the background you can see some of the landscaping of that moon and this fortress that he calls Ramune. And with the skull and the daisies here, there's a lot of thematics about Hylia, of course. The stagnation series extends out a little bit into my YouTube. Here we see this is stagnation part 1 of 5, and this is part 3 of 5, because the second part is actually in one of my videos. And this one is titled, very appropriately, Depressed Man Attempts to Paint. I won't go through the video because it is very personal. It's very personal. I haven't watched it since, but you know, it's just kind of part of showing yourself in this way on the internet. At the end of this video, it kind of goes to black. You would think would be the end of the video, but you can see it actually goes on a little longer because it cuts back to me kind of cleaning up after the painting. And here I'm like aware of something happening around me, but I'm not aware completely of it. It's this portrayal of the interior of Raskila, or Ramuni, the first fortress, with this like dragon motif. In this following video here, you can see more footage of Fort Ramuni, Fort Chamomile. What Pilot is seeing in this kind of dream state, he doesn't really know how much of it is real. He's kind of having just these visions of maybe the future, of what's bound to happen, that Fort Ramone is going to fall. You can see the comet kind of piercing through the fortress. He wakes up from the nightmare. He kind of saw himself in the mirror in a way. And after that fortress fell, you can see that there is a new castle right there in the background that's risen. That is Raskila, the lady mantle, which its shape is kind of based on the dragon amulet that he had. but it's kind of pointing upwards and it's doubled and it's got these like protruding thorns and stuff. I actually have a 3D render of that. I only used it for this as a background, I guess, but I was planning to make a bit of a more intricate video, like zooming into it and showing off the whole actual landscape of the moon. But that deemed to be too big of a project. I just didn't have that sort of time, so I just incorporated it into this little photo shoot that I did with the dagger to show off the talus that I created at the time. And this excerpt here actually talks of a type of deity, Caris. So here we're actually introduced to something that lays at the center of Carulum, the planet Carulum. There's a deity called the Warrior. And this explains the weird, strange nature of Carulum, that it doesn't have an astral body in red space. It's because its planet is essentially a god from violet space that came down to blue space and became a planet. And that's where all this magical energy and stuff is coming from. That's why the grays is there and all that. This is just describing how with every inspiration, like every inhale, he creates. And with every exhale, the land kind of collapses and destroys itself and is reborn, and it's just this cycle of creation and destruction. So they're kind of praying to this god to be asleep. They don't want him to become a deity again because they are unaware of his true motivations. This post here is just some iterations of the canvas. This is the symbol that I was talking about, the god's hand of creation, which is kind of the warrior's hand of creation, the god Caris that we talked of. This is unrelated, it's just personal. It's just from the My Dreamy Canvas series that I do on YouTube. And after that, we come to the ending of Stagnation, which is one of my favorite videos. I'm proud of how long it took me to make. The first clip that I filmed for it was like a year and a half ago, and I've just been gathering all these clips from my life in general. It's a video that doesn't, I would say, even depict Pilot. It mainly depicts me and my life. It's all intertwined in a way to say how Pilot's story wouldn't exist without my story. So at a certain point, it's hard to tell where it's one or the other, So in the beginning of this video, you can see a quote pop up. It's from Dune. I read the first 4 books, then I dropped it because I realized Frank Herbert is just a little homophobic, which I still appreciate the series for what it is. I just don't appreciate that he abandoned his gay son, basically, and never talked about him, acted like he doesn't exist. And then that theme is kind of felt throughout the series of Dune, but that's not the fucking point of this video. This isn't a book review. I just really liked this quote from the first book because it resonated with me a lot, especially through this whole stagnation thing, dealing with anxiety and all that. It talks about how you need to kind of face your fear and let it pass through you. You need to acknowledge it, and maybe how that's changed you as a person is kind of maybe how I interpret the quote. Without saying too much, I think I will just let the video play through a little bit. The song I'm using is pretty dear to me as well. I really like this song. Here in the background, I throw that Hylia stone that I used in the ritual, and then we cut to a lot of clips from my life, from my holidays, being with friends, with family. This is only really going to pertain to me and make sense to me in a way. This is me sitting down on my desk, writing a novel I'm working on, which has nothing to do with Poorsleeepyhead. Here's a kind of duality of this lost little wandering fox and myself. And you can see the seasons changing, literally the seasons changing, which just shows how long it took for me to complete this video. It was literally winter, summer, autumn, all the seasons going around. And then it comes to this final moment when I finally find that skull again. And it's changed form, it's changed shape, it's worn, it's different. This little poem in particular was in my notes for like years until I was finally able to post it for this post. In particular, it just talks of the moon, describing its landscape as like these white mounds that looked like distant clouds of impending doom. So him just kind of placing himself on this alien world, taking part in this mentorship using magic, like kind of feeling this impending doom about the whole situation, about this big journey that he's going on. He's talking about how the fortress rose from water in this kind of fragile state. It smelled kind of flammable, maybe gas, something that could just come up in flames in any second. All my gardens wilted, left me just a rotten apple gilded with inscription. It's kind of like a play on that fig poem. I'm sure you know of that one where it's the fig tree and you're looking at all the figs with all the opportunities in life, and if you know you don't pick one, they're all just gonna rot and fall to the ground and you don't have any like kind of path to go on. And with the gilded apple, he's taking this journey, this path. He's realizing that there's just no other way but to just continue on with this experience. Sour feelings, trials, and fates. Sweet dreams were my only escape. So this ties into the whole sleepyhead thing, using dreams and fantasy as an escape from reality. Because this is more so for myself. All of the stuff that I've done up till now to this video was really mainly for myself. I wasn't trying to appeal to a wide audience. Of course, that would be a nice symptom of what I'm doing, but what I'm doing is just for myself. And with the Stagnation series ending, I will be detaching my personal life more from it and just fully delving into the whole fantasy bit of it now that I've established its base ground. So in a similar way, you can see Pilot reaching out to Sif, but his visionaries and observers as well, kind of saying that he's like cutting the ties. So here he's saying he's going to perform a sealing incantation, which is going to cut any ties to visionaries and observers, which are really putting them at risk of being discovered by Highly. It is the first time that the source recipient is an observer, so that's like a pretty anomalous thing. And you can see that the overseer of this whole coalition, Kirana, is initiating a disbandment of the organization, and in that way they are also severing ties with me. So that's why from this point on, after Stagnation Part 5, my content's going to change a little bit, because I've been really inspired by these clips I've seen on TikTok of these like fantasy animations done by I believe Ghoul Productions specifically, but they animate these characters and it all seems very silly on the surface, I think. And I thought that would be a great format to introduce into my little universe to kind of get my own spin on it. But how that will evolve, I can't tell you right now. It's just gonna come up to me. To end this video, for the last portion of it, I want to speak on my opinions about AI. So right off the bat, I'm against the use of generative AI. I did mention this illustration here in particular, that AI was used to make it. I posted this in 2023, which might not look that long ago, but we know how quick and sudden the rise of AI generated content was. At the time that I created this illustration, Photoshop had just kind of about introduced this new AI tool where you can write a prompt and you can generate backgrounds, objects. You can alter your Photoshop image however you want. It just made it very streamlined and easy. And in 2023, it was pretty fascinating. And I think a lot of artists were still kind of limboing with using these tools, which I think at the time there was still more of a conversation about AI being a tool in the art world, which in my opinion has gone way beyond that, and I do not see it as that anymore. Because if I'm going to explain how I made this image, now how I would have done it without AI was I was going to either use my actual like photos I've taken as reference, or I was just going to go on Google, find some kind of landscapes, find the photo of the sky, water, rocks, and I was just going to kind of copy paste them on, change the color, mask it, map it, you know, do whatever to make it look like a cohesive image. It's kind of how I've done other illustrations, which you can see on my ArtStation. I use that technique, which is called photo bashing. You're just taking photos and bashing it together into one illustration, making it look cohesive. And for this illustration, I did that, but using the prompts that Photoshop lets you use. So, and of course, I didn't just let AI do its own thing. I painted over the whole thing, which is how I do it with the photo bashing technique anyway. I went and I added these little pebbles. I added some moss, this eyeball that I believe was generated with the image. I added it into this little nook in the wood. I added it like down in the sand by the like weeds or whatever it is. I did the like rimming around the water because it didn't do the like little ripples, so I added those. I added this reflection of the fire in the water. I edited the whole bottom of it. I repainted it because it was just a little messed up. I added those like floating rocks in the background, and I definitely like added this whole detail, like these seeds. I think the initial shape of it I generated, and then I just painted on top to make it look like it was dripping because it was struggling to kind of give me that result that I wanted. So it was definitely still very collaborative, right? With like my vision that I actually saw. I didn't just let the AI like completely change it. I will say though, like the bird, it wasn't exactly how I imagined it, right? Because I was using this as a reference, which was my first initial sketch that I came up with, obviously. But obviously, it looks different because I did, in this instance, let the AI kind of take control of that and kind of give me a new idea, a little fresh perspective on how that could look. Just like with this whole Photoshop thingy, even before that, there was Dolly, the site that I knew to be like a image generation site. They weren't perfect. They were a little abstract, and I did use those as well in some of my posts in my main account. So in this post, obviously I didn't use AI to generate the video. I animated this in Blender, but the texture of the orb itself was generated with an AI. I basically asked it to create an intricate golden like alien organic pattern, and literally gave me like a little square image of that, and then I just pasted that texture onto the object. Like literally that was the only way I used AI, was to make the texture of the object, but everything else was rendered, lit, and animated by me by hand using Blender, a 3D programming tool. The other instance was here. This side little thingy you see was also a texture that I generated. I believe Dolly gave me a section of this, and then I went to Photoshop and I extended it outward. What I could have done as well was gone onto Google, searched up gothic decorative trimming or something, searched up a skull, transposed it onto the image, edited it, made it look like how I wanted it to look there. But I didn't. I used AI because I thought, it's just a quicker, little easier thing to do. Mainly because it's not that big of a part of the whole image. The focus is obviously the portrait. Here in the background as well, I used generated little images of castles. These pillars, literally again, could have used anything else. And even this castle in the back was also generated by AI. And now what I did was I looked at this image and I used it as a reference point to craft a 3D model of it. I don't have the image anymore that was generated, but it didn't have that much detail to begin with. It was just kind of the general shape, and it was quite abstract. It didn't make much sense, so I just kind of used my brain to try to make sense of it in 3D space, because I was just looking at a 2D image for reference. And so I reconstructed it in this way. I added some elements of my own. The 3D model I think I was going to use at first to animate the whole breaking apart of the castle, but I thought it would actually just be easier to take the plain PNG image and edit it in After Effects. So that's where I made this whole falling apart animation with the comet. And this is something I had rendered out quite well. The dragons, the two dragon heads, kind of, maybe you can tell. They were pasted like one here, one there. Then it has these like tendrils, like nails coming out of the ground. It's kind of shaping itself up from the ground, and it has this yin yang symbol in there. And it was all intentional design. I didn't let AI design this castle in particular. True art comes down to actually doing the hard thing, the time-consuming thing, using your skills and growing on it. And on this topic, a YouTuber named Jazza has actually made some really good points. I watched his video. He's made a video a while ago on his opinions about it, where he was a bit more optimistic about AI, as I was maybe in 2023 as well. And I didn't see that video at the time, but the new video he uploaded afterwards, after he got a lot of backlash, he's against it, and he made some good points about it. So apart from literally those few things that I pointed out, specifically those things, there's not any other AI usage in the content that I have posted up until now. But it's just the fact that I used it made me feel icky at a certain point. So I just wanted to point it out to be completely transparent and clear about where these elements came from, what the process was behind them. Going forward, I do not see myself using it to even that extent anymore, even though at the time it seemed harmless. I think we've come to a point where you need to take a very firm stance on it. I understand in the industry how it works. When there's money involved, it needs to be efficient, fast. That thing is just happening in the industry. It's the reason why I didn't go into video game art, even though I have a video game digital art degree. And that's what inspired me to go for tattooing. It's a very traditional form of art. When it comes to the whole discourse against AI online, I have a pretty big pet peeve of an argument people make against it. People say, wasting all this water, right? You're wasting all this water. Good luck having drinking water in the future. That is an issue. Of course, that is an issue. There's a big environmental impact of using AI. But when it comes to the usage of AI in generated artworks, I don't see the relevance of talking about water usage. Like, that's not the issue when I'm talking about artwork, using generative AI to make artwork. I'm very much more concerned of the moral implications that it has on the whole concept of literal human-made art. The fact that you have to defend yourself as an artist, which is, if you haven't realized, what I've been doing this whole video was having to convince you that I am an artist and what it is that I do and how much thought was behind it. You have to vouch for yourself. With everything that you do now online, you have to prove to people that you have the skills necessary. Because even I find myself scrolling through a feed, let's say, and I see some amazing artwork, and my instant reaction is not wow, it's some kind of doubt. I'm doubting if what I'm looking at was actually made by a human. Interestingly enough, I used to be very attracted to artworks that were abstract, that were surrealist. Dolly, even the name, the AI that it based its name off, the artist Salvador Dali, his surrealist paintings I was a big fan of, because even though they're kind of nonsensical, I just loved the whole themes of them, and the fact that this person came up with these images out of his own mind for something that is very far removed from reality. And now AI has made that into its own aesthetic. And now I can't help but associate them with the style of AI, just some AI gibberish, just some nonsense, right? Now I want to see some kind of cohesiveness. I want to see a story behind it. I want to see something that makes sense. And that also plays into the fact how I'm making a whole story, building all my artwork around the central story. Is the fact that I think a story helps really mend it all together. This is an extremely difficult thing to put into words, like my actual thoughts on it. I didn't write this out. I'm just kind of talking as it's coming to my head, but I think you can understand my point. But in a way, I feel like the small artists, which have their own very unique style, which isn't as of yet very replicated by AI that well, they, I think, get a lot of recognition and appreciation just for the fact that you can tell that they are labors of love, human creation, something that looks like a doodle, a scribble, some stupid stuff, right? Like the thing that I mentioned, that the animations I want to make, is kind of what that reminds me of. It's this like newborn little appreciation for art, what it is at its core, to support smaller artists, people who have ideas and visions for things that are not just for the algorithm, you know? This is just a very huge topic, and I think it's a lot to kind of dump at the end of the video, and I really could go on and on about it, but I hope you get the gist. But with that, I would be ending the video off. Tell me if you really stuck through it all. It was quite overwhelming to listen and for me to talk about. But otherwise, I would also love to see any questions about this whole lore thing. If you are interested in this world expanding, what would you want to see from it? If there are some kind of like cohesiveness issues, like something that doesn't add up, you can also let me know so that I can fix it. Because this is like a story that I'm crafting kind of as it goes, so there's bound to be things that are like a little made up on the spot. But that is the nature of creation, isn't it? It's that you don't have it all figured out, and that you're figuring it out. You're using your brain, your human brain, to make art, which is amazing, and you should do that too. Thank you so much for watching. My throat hurts. I'll go drink some water, and I will see you with what I do. What is it that I do?